the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh,
Could you please make sure your phones are on silent or turned off? I need to do this for everybody just coming in. I don't have a sheet either, sorry. Thank you, Amanda. Tiffany, you gonna speak?
I just want
One of them to say yes. Okay, all right, thank you, Amanda. Okay, I would take a motion to move into executive for. All right.
Is Eric, are you good?
pretty funny.
Let's go. Wrap it up.
He's not. Yeah, see? All right, we're
Are
good.
we ready? Okay, thanks. All right, Mr. Herman.
Right, so thank you. I'd like to introduce Ms. DiBiase, who is going to do her first draft budget presentation of our budget cycle for this year, so.
Thank you for having me. Always an exciting time to talk about our budget and what's coming up in the next year. To start off, I wanted to share, similar to last year, we'll send out a survey for folks in the community where they can send us what's most important to them so we can make sure we have that feedback as part of our process. So we'll present here tonight the kind of first draft. That survey will be released this Friday, and we'll take that feedback and incorporate it into the budget process. The current draft budget includes preserving our existing general fund programming, continuation of our strategic equipment replacement planning, and includes the funding for our robust offering of athletic and club activities for our students. So it is, sort of continuation of what we have, as well as looking at how we can do things better in the district. As you know, the governor's numbers for revenue came out, so I just wanted to show you those numbers and talk about a few of them and why my numbers and my projections and our future presentations might be slightly different from these numbers. So as you can see, the first big change for us is really our foundation aid number. If you'll remember last year when I presented, I said save harmless, we used to get 3%, now we get 2%. This year I'm going to say last year we got 2%, this year we're going to get 1%. So it's not a positive change for us, although it's a positive 1%. I would see this as a loss of 1% in foundation aid for us. The next number on here is our BOCES aid. I put a little star next to it just to say you can see that 36% increase of about $500,000. Two things with this number. The first is that these projections are submitted by our BOCES on our behalf. So I don't control what goes into that number, but I do know what ends up going into the aid number. These numbers are typically in the governor's proposal higher than what we actually receive in our BOCES aid. So you may see my number be a little lower. The second thing is that our BOCES surplus every year needs to come out of this number. So if you're looking at my revenue projections, you might see a little shifting and you might see my numbers be a little bit lower than that. On all in all though, I would expect our BOCES aid to go up. We have a couple of new programs running through COSERS this year, and I get the revenue for that in the year following. So you will see an increase there. Slight changes in our excess cost aid, that's just based on our students. Same thing for instructional materials. Our transportation aid increased there as well. Kind of same conversation as the BOCES aid. Those projections tend to be a little bit higher than what we actually collect at the end of the year. Our building aid number though is the big one. So on the governor's proposal, you'll see that she has projected that number to decrease. When you look at my numbers, you're going to see a very, very, very large increase. The reason being that in the last budget cycle, we talked about how our budget went down by $2 million because we had debt payments falling off, and then the revenue for that debt also fell off. In 26-27, I now have debt for our capital project that's ongoing, so that aid is going to come in next year, but it's not included in the governor's projections because I haven't filed the paperwork yet. So I know it's going to come in, the governor doesn't know it's going to come in. It's a big number, it's a big difference from what she projects, but we have more information in district than the governor does when she's running these numbers. Overall, they're projecting that 4.2% increase, but again, the big number for us is foundation aid. Everything else, we know on our side what is going to come in pretty much. The foundation aid is what we rely on that annual increase from the state to be able to continue operating our programs. So that said, some fiscal challenges for us. Initial projections of our tax cap is 3.2%, about $170,000, a little bit over. Just kind of to keep in your heads, a 1% increase on our tax levy is approximately $55,000, whereas that 1% increase in foundation aid is approximately $130,000. The reason I say that is we know inflation is about 3.2, 3.3%. So if my revenue isn't going up to match that, my expenses, even if everything stays exactly the same, are going to increase at a faster pace than my revenues. And in particular, I've highlighted some of the expenses that I would be happy if 3% increase was what I was getting on those expenses. We're getting much more in these. So if you look at our utilities, we had held pretty steady for a few years. From 24, 25 last year to this year, we had a little bit over a $100,000 increase. From this year to next year, we had a little bit over a $100,000 increase. The reason being our utilities are going up between 20 and 30%, and they did the same thing last year. So we're really seeing that hit our bills. I'm sure everybody at home is feeling that as well, particularly with our electric bills. They are really going through the roof, and we don't anticipate that to lessen in the next fiscal cycle.
Not related to usage increases.
Correct. So this is the delivery rate. So our total overall electric usage or utility usage in general is relatively flat. The delivery rate, it has gone up exponentially, which is just what we get charged for needing to have electricity brought to us. Some of that, RG&E has changed some of their pricing structure, but some of it, also as the grid attempts to be able to have enough power for electrification, we, the consumer, are feeling some of that pressure financially as well as that cost gets passed on to us. The second big number to talk about for expenses is really our health insurance. Last year we talked about a large percentage increase, averaging about 15%. 26, 27, we're looking at a same style increase for our active employee plans. For our Medicare plan, the increase from year to year is 80%, which is a pretty shocking number. Those are benefits that, once someone retires, they have that Medicare plan for health insurance. We're obligated to provide it to them, and we're seeing some pretty shocking increases with that. And the last number to talk about is our special education number. These are typically, this number is a large cost for us, and I would say that these are not our total education budget, just our contractual expenditures. So that would be BOCES and tuition. So this number we have relatively little control over. We have to provide programming for students with disabilities that's appropriate for them. Sometimes that means an out-of-district placement, either in a private placement or in a BOCES program. And you'll see that this number, we have had students who need those types of placements more, and you'll see that number increase alongside of that. So just a few areas. These are areas that have a strong impact on our budget. They're high dollar values. So as these have strong changes, you're going to see that reflected in the overall budget. So the first look at the budget that I wanted to give you is by what we're buying, not necessarily split into that three-part budget that you'll see later on in the budgeting process, but salaries, benefits, services, BOCES, that, some of the big hits. So salaries, we'll see a modest increase, just under 3%. Benefits, we're seeing at 6.74%. So although we're seeing those really high increases to the plans, what I'm also seeing is some folks leaving our plans, getting insurance elsewhere. And we also have a unique demographic of our folks so that we are not participating in as many of those higher cost plans. So when I do the analysis of our actual folks, that's the percentage increase that I'm projecting. For between 4 and 5% for contractual, I would say is relatively normal. Materials, slight increase. Our BOCES costs, stronger increase there. This is strongly driven by the special education rates that are also increasing at the BOCES level. Those are set by the BOCES, and we're obligated to pay them for the programs that we participate in. Equipment, pretty much flat, 0.96% is this overall, budget. We plan to replace some of our maintenance, and grounds equipment. We do a little bit every year so that we don't have equipment that's failing, and also so that we don't see large budgetary spikes, from cycle to cycle. And then, of course, this last number, our debt service. So going up $2.2 million, that's a function of our capital project getting started. So remember that although the expense is going up $2.2 million, I'm also receiving that building aid on the other side of the equation. So you'll see both ends of that. And it's, this $2.2 million number is not going to the taxpayers. That capital project had, no tax impact to the overall levy. So we're gonna see that in both halves. It's gonna look a little crazy when we try to calculate out a 130% increase, but it's just a normal function of that debt coming back onto our cycle. So when I take that out, just to kind of gauge in our heads what's our actual, if I were to say a reasonable budgetary increase, if I take that debt out of the equation, it's about 4.6%. I would say an overall budgetary increase between 4 and 6 or 7% is relatively normal year to year. So this tells me that our other assumptions and estimations are right on track. So where do we go from here? So I told you my revenues are going to be estimated a little differently. You'll see that now the number is at $27 million instead of $2 million lower. Our estimated expenses are at about 28.4, and our overall budgetary gap is just under $500,000. From this point last year, that number was much higher. So what we're doing to address our continued fiscal challenges is having an impact. However, I would say there continue to be new challenges, right? My foundation aid expected increase went from 2% to 1%. That has an impact on us coming back to the table and having a gap year. So we'll continue to try and work through that, assess what changes we need to make to be able to get this number to zero. Of course, we have to present a balanced budget to the voters. So that's the work that we're currently engaged in to go through that. As part of the work, some of those variables are still happening in the budgetary process. We do have some outstanding BOCES rates, so I've gotten some of the rates. I've gotten special education rates. I'm still waiting on CTE, which is about $500,000 in our current year budget. So that can have a large impact for us. As those rates come in, it will fluctuate the numbers in the draft budget. We'll also have a better idea of possible retirements in March. Typically, by the March meeting, we have a good idea of who's retiring, who's not. And we'll have that firmer enrollment projection as we see where students are landing academically in the year. So part of our process, of course, when we have a gap, we have to prioritize what we're going to offer here at Red Creek. So we've got the community feedback. That's part of that survey from folks. Tell us what's most important to you so that we can incorporate that into the budget process. Of course, your input as a board, what's most important to you here, in our ongoing student needs, what's most appropriate for our children academically, and how we can best go about providing that. So overall, I would say, yes, we have a gap. Is it still going to be a challenge for us? Yes, but in a better position than we were this time last year. Any questions?
Mr. Bernard, we're at the end of February right now,
We are.
and thank you. Most BOCES have already sent out their final service request forms for next year. It's unheard of to hear that Wayne Finger Lakes has not given the rates yet for next year. What can we do as a board to put some pressure on those folks? Because it's not fair for the other components to play the guessing game of, oh, what rate are they gonna play next year?
Yeah, so I think, as you may be aware, BOCES has undergone some leadership changes in the last few months, which I think highlight exactly what Mrs. Digman is bringing up, those kind of fiscal gaps in information and numbers that districts have been asking for. I know I've been very vocal in pushing BOCES to provide that information for us. Obviously, every district is doing this same work right now that we are, so every district is craving that information. I have a meeting this week with BOCES. Danielle had a meeting 2 weeks ago with BOCES. We're hoping to get some more clear answers from them as early as this week, on what that looks like.
Can I ask a clarifying question to that? So there is no set date that the information has to be provided by?
There's an expectation that we have received it by this point, but we are at the mercy of BOCES to provide that information to us.
Other BOCES set dates.
When
You know,
are
they set the
normally-
budget calendar like we do,
Mhm.
and they submit everything.
What are they normally up on for other BOCES?
December and January.
Yeah. January, I was gonna say January at the latest, this would be,
Is this a regular practice by Wayne Finger Lakes?
more consistent. Yeah,
Do you need us to sign something that you're taking with you, or?
You know, they have some openings on the board, and maybe we need to have
Somebody
some
needs to write this down.
folks who would like to go and advocate for the smaller districts, Red Creek, North Rose. Because it's a lot different budgeting for Red Creek than it is,
can they was.
sure.
Sure.
Um,
So what those projection numbers really come from is, when we do a final service requests, every district is locking in the things that they are asking BOCES to provide for the following year. And then BOCES takes all those requests and adds them together, comes up with a total cost, divides them by the schools that have asked for those requests, and then sends them out to us. Absent of those numbers, as Danielle has just indicated, it's a guess, right? So we're guessing based on how many schools in past years have asked for that same service with us, maybe based on the rates that we have previously received from last year. But if other schools opt in or out of those services, it could drastically change the overall cost structure to each individual school. And the sooner we have that information, it's another check mark in the list of unknown things that we're waiting on, that we just continue to wait on.
Kudos to you, Mrs. DiBiase, for doing this on such a whim and not knowing the information. But I will say that I think that we do need to do something to show that this is unacceptable, especially with a gap. If there was a huge surplus and we were sitting on an extra $2 million to buy fun things, then that would be different. But I think especially because we're at a point where we're potentially not going to be able to offer the same programs that we have in the past. I think that if there's an opportunity, as Mrs. Digman is saying, for us to make some sort of noise and I think we're all on board and helping that along.
Yeah,
Or if somebody would like to run for the BOCES board, I would be happy to nominate you.
I think another piece of the puzzle is, as Danielle mentioned, the governor released her budget numbers, which included the decrease down to 1% for schools like Red Creek. It's important to remember, right, that the legislative budget gets an opportunity to kind of negotiate and amend those numbers. Another timeline that we have no control over, we hope, by law, the governor has to present a balanced budget in April. Oftentimes that does not occur, which further challenges, right? It's another variable that's an unknown. So I think what you're hearing and hopefully that we're trying to get you folks to understand is that this is a best guess game, and we're trying to put some numbers in place with the moving targets. And it's unfortunate that schools like Red Creek kind of are being used as a political football to meet other people's agendas, and it's our kids and our programs that are up in the air, and we have to make these decisions around staffing and programs, and we're shooting in the dark. So yes, if the board, I can certainly work on getting a position statement that if the board wanted to sign, we could send to BOCES or to our legislators in support of those challenges. I'd be happy to do that.
and we'll let you know who Mrs. Damon talks into running for the BOCES board.
It is an election year. It's a big election year at the state level, which sometimes optimistically provides a little more funding for schools, but that's to be determined at this point.
We're not gonna go from a 1% though to a 3, 4, or 5 though, so.
Right, but that 1%, that, you know, going from 1% to 2%, it represents another $130,000 in the revenue side, right? So that's a number. That's a number.
Danielle, I know I saw last week that the governor's adding more money to her budget. And I kind of like looked through and I saw SUNY was on there. Is there any possibility that we might get more from that or no?
Is there a possibility? Yes, but it really comes from the legislative side. At this point, the state aid runs that the governor have released for public school districts like ours are the runs that we have until the legislative body makes a motion.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Van Orman?
Certainly. Our monthly update on MVPs. Somebody click
Yep.
there it is, perfect. So we have 40, there's 40 names up on that chart this month. And I have, again, a couple highlights. Carrie Griffith, science teacher in the high school. I'd like to nominate Carrie because she's the one who believed in me when I was scared about failing the living environment regents. She's one of the best teachers at Red Creek, obviously from a student. Right. Rebecca Campbell, who is a teaching assistant for us in the elementary building. She is a very hard and diligent employee here at Red Creek. She loves educating the students she works with, and she cares about the needs of all of her students. Her dedication to her job and her students is honorable, commendable, and inspiring. And shout out to Tracy Woodhams, one of our cleaners. She's an amazing person who is always willing to talk to you. She takes her job seriously and is always willing to lend a hand when needed. I just wanted to let her know just how much she is appreciated. So.
That's great. So nice. Mr. Gaffney's back there disappointed that you didn't read his.
Yes, that is correct. Try to spread them out.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the minutes from the meeting from January 21st. Could I have a motion, please? Mrs. Decker, a second. Mrs. Folds. Any questions? Corrections? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on. The financial reports.
Make a motion for E1 through 5.
Thank you, Mrs. Decker, and a second by Mrs. Allen. Questions on this group? When you're ready.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Folds,
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman,
Yes.
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Joyce,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen, and Mrs. Madigan.
Yes, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion for F1 through 6 except for 3.
I'll get that motion, thank you, and a second by Mrs. Dingman.
1 through 6, minus 3.
Questions? When you're ready.
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Joyce,
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman,
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Folds,
Yes.
and Mrs. Madigan.
Yes, thank you. Ready for F3?
I'll make the
Mrs. Dingman, thank you, and a second by Mrs. Decker, sorry, I didn't see you.
Sorry. I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Taylor for a moment to speak on behalf of Cheryl Howell.
Yeah. Mrs. Howell is great, right? She's fantastic. She's very dedicated, she's consistent, she is great for kids. You know, it's a tough job. 4th grade, you know, may seem like it's an easy thing. And if you see what Mrs. Howell can do, it does seem easy, but it's not. It certainly can be a challenge because, but she's, been teaching our kids, and she's a leader, for decades now. She's not just a leader for our kids, she's also certainly a leader in our building. She's a go-to for so many things, and when we have new initiatives, she is one of the first people that jumps on it. Mrs. Howell was critical, like we're reading right now, Gooseberry Park in the elementary building for One Book, One School. She's the one who suggested that book, and she's she was part of the first chapter when our 5th graders read it aloud to the assembly, the Rams assembly last month. It's been fantastic when we bring out new initiatives. I know coming off of COVID years ago, when we were coming back off of COVID, we started doing those classroom circles on a daily basis. Mrs. Howell just jumped right in, and that was something that was right there, integral and part of her classroom when we came back, and she built it right there. Her teaching goes beyond the walls of our school. It's out into the community. She's been here. She's a very strong member of our community. She's fantastic. She's gonna be missed. She's gonna be missed in our building. Yeah.
Man, Dennis pulling at the heartstrings tonight.
My youngest is actually in 4th grade right now, so she's having lots of interactions with Mrs. Howell, and she is just spectacular. Like, even knowing that she's retiring, she's like pouring all the love into these 4th graders and like letting them pick things from her classroom as they're done with them, and just like really making it special for everybody. Almost like the kids love it and are like excited for her, but she's not checked out. She's like even more invigorated, it seems, this year. So it's been really fun to kind of like hear.
Your classroom.
I'm starting to feel like Mrs. Howell's having an estate sale in her classroom, in case anybody needs anything.
There's a capital project coming up that she does have to.
Take this home with you. Oh, well, please give her our best. We're very excited for her when you're ready.
Mrs. Foltz,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Damon,
Yes.
Mr. Joyce,
Yes.
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
and Mrs. Madigan.
Yes, thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Take a motion for 1 and 2. Mrs. Allen, second by Mr. Joyce. So just the first reading on the first group. I know there was some discussion. Questions, follow up from that?
Just in full disclosure, I know there were some questions at the committee level. I did not, if you look through like 3140, for instance, I did not reflect those changes in here yet. Just wanted to provide that opportunity in public before we made those changes, specifically around just some titling, interchangeability between the board and the district and how it reads back and forth. So I'm aware that they're not changed, but I wanted to make sure we brought it out in open session.
Great.
I just have a question, I guess, about, so the questions were asked and then the response, but is it working well for everybody to do it that way via email? As far as like questions asked, the responses given, we're checking it? Does that seem, is the process working for everyone, I guess is my question.
I'm okay with it.
I feel like it's the first time we've actually kind of done it. I'm not against it. I think I was a skeptic for 7 people on the
Yeah.
policy committee, so I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I do feel like it flowed pretty well. I'll be interested to see what this next round looks like to
That's
vote
a fair
on.
response, because this first round of questions weren't heavy. It was a pretty light load of feedback that was given, so in fairness, maybe we'll wait, maybe I'll ask the same question if there's a heavy.
When they're a little more weighted.
I was just curious if the back and forth is doable for everybody, I guess, but maybe that's an unfair question to ask today. I'll ask it again later.
Yeah, I think you should, but I haven't heard any drawbacks so far.
Okay.
So, anything else?
On policies or on the whole?
Anything on G1 and G2?
So I just have a comment on G2 if we're done with the policy. I don't wanna move. So just my comment on G2, the senior class trip.
I think it's important to highlight the fact that the senior class trip is for seniors. It's not about teachers, it's not about chaperones, it's not about anybody but the seniors. You think about who's been fundraising money for all these years to go enjoy a trip with their classmates. But it seems that year after year after year, we're on the same trip, based on where teachers and chaperones wanna go. Students present other ideas, they don't pan out for whatever reason, some are logistics of it, some are just impossible, trips to take. But I think it's important moving forward that again, the students who are fundraising and the students who are going to have that lasting memory with their classmates should have a say in where they go. If students are kind of hemming and hawing verbally to a lot of people that this isn't what they want to do, especially a group who has quite a bit of funds and didn't get to go on an 8th grade class trip, this should have been about them, not about chaperones or teachers. So I think moving forward, that's something that we want to make sure happens, is that students have a voice here.
Thank you.
I have something, and it's something I say every year, I feel. You know, when I looked at the anticipated cost, it says $800 before, you know, the grants, and then $600 after. And I understand fundraising is available for all students. Typically, if a student has a difficult time coming up with the 600, chances are their circle who can help with the fundraising is also limited. So I just wanna make sure that if a student wants to go, and if money is an issue, that they still have an opportunity to be able to go.
That is accurate.
Thank you.
Anything else? When you're ready.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman,
Yes.
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
Mrs. Foltz, Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Joyce,
Yes.
and Mrs. Madigan.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to reports. So I'm just gonna ask, cause he's not here, so does anybody know, did they win? Cause Aiden's not here and at the game?
The most recent update I had was with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter and Red Creek was winning, but I have not.
Can we check real quick?
I know.
It's gotta be online somewhere.
I do not
You got
have
students in
I
it.
do not have an unread text,
I-
so,
It's gonna leave us hanging.
yes.
Somebody call Mr. Welch.
All right, were there any questions? Unfortunately, Aiden's not here to answer, so hopefully he's winning. Any questions on the administrative reports? Any thoughts? Okay, great. Moving on. Mr. Van Orman, if you wanna speak to the enrollment?
Yes, again, enrollment down just a small tick from last month, but as I indicated in my transmittal, I had signed, I believe, 6 new student registrations in the last couple of weeks that are not yet reflected in this. And then, I believe just yesterday or earlier this week, 2 more to the good, so
We're just
hopefully
raking them in.
hopefully, right, it's kind of like a sign of spring, we're getting, we're increasing our student enrollment, so,
Yay.
any questions on that?
No, just this time it was kids coming in, so I
Yes.
felt like I needed to say something positive.
Absolutely. Next, I just wanted to kind of share the student board member protocols. Last year, this current year, as you are well aware, was the first time that Red Creek had a student representative as a board member, Aiden, of course. We put a policy in place in accordance with the law. I've spent some time with Mr. Gaffney, and Mr. Gaffney has spent some time with student council, kind of refining what we had in place from this year based on what we learned. And the discussion really kind of centered around trying to mimic in some way the actual board member election process, but from the student perspective. So those protocols that you would kind of see would align with our policy, but also allow for the increase from 1 student rep to 2 student reps, possibly a junior and a senior next year. The opportunity to involve the entire student body in this process by preparing an email and messaging from involving Aiden and student council to the entire student high school population around like, hey, if you're excited and want to get involved and want to have a voice, here's what you can do. So that messaging is scheduled to go out this week to generate some interest, provide those steps, and then allowing the students to participate in that same process that our community does by voting through like lunch periods and so forth to, students that are interested in would get a nomination packet and they would get signatures from other students, which is the same as what all of our prospective board members would do with the community, of course. And then our students would be able to cast some ballots in that kind of democratic process where we would identify some. So just trying to get more awareness, more student involvement in it, just make it a little more robust than, as we've gotten into it and had a chance to kind of dissect what we did, we thought maybe this was a more inclusive practice, so.
I just have a question. How do you pitch this to students?
It's gonna go on an email to all
Right.
students.
I mean, like, what do you say, like, the job description is? Yeah. I mean, is it simply, hey, you go to board meetings and you make a report every month? I mean, I'm just wondering how does it look to a student? What is included in this type of role?
Maybe that's a better question for Aiden, from his perspective, right? Of course.
I
he's
don't know.
not-
Well, by the time we have our next meeting, it will be past, the March 1st, like.
The boys did win.
We'll ask
They
you.
did?
Oh, yay!
See,
I would imagine that it would be like good on a resume to have that leadership, cause they do go through training with other superintendents.
Yep,
and groups, so
yeah, so we have a regional superintendent that leads a group of all the student board reps from the region. They meet online, they've met in person, as a network, sounding boards. I meet with Aiden on a regular basis. Mr. Gaffney touches base with Aiden on a regular basis. So trying to gain some perspective, fill him in on some things. So,
Well, it'd just be interesting to see how many students we have that might be interested.
I hope
Yeah.
women too.
Can I ask a question? Or maybe two questions? So when I read through this, it didn't sound like students were voting. It sounded like the panel was gonna select the candidates. By the panel, do you mean like a panel of students or a panel of teachers?
Well, it says a faculty panel.
So then when do students vote if the faculty panel is making the decision?
was that a change, Mr. Gaffney?
No, not on my news, no. It's they gotta require 12 student signatures.
Okay.
So
And then
students,
we'll collect whoever meets, whatever student who has an interest will go around and get signatures like a typical board applicant. Once they receive those, we'll collect those and there'll be a panel of teachers that will go through them and review the applicants.
so do students vote?
No, there's
Okay.
no vote with for the student.
Okay.
Okay.
My
Only the
apologies.
signatures, they gotta get the signatures, student signatures.
Did you have another question?
Well, if,
That was eliminated.
Depending on what
Okay.
that
All right. Accountability?
accountability, Dad, I wanted to share this out. I know we were scheduled on the books to present this last month, but it was not released publicly from the state at that point. Since then, it has come out. This is our created version of a report card for kind of readability and I wanted to kind of draw your attention to, some historical reference over the last couple of years. I recognize this may be a little bit overwhelming to a layperson who is not living some of these accountability measures on a daily basis. So the overall important information at the board level is we are in good state, what used to be referred to as good standing, now they've changed the language to local support and improvement, which is a good designation. the lower designations require more intervention, and the restrictive use of some of our funding targeted towards interventions related to wherever our deficiency may be, based on subcategory, like economically disadvantaged students, if they're not meeting improvement or academic targets, or students with disabilities, those designation targets, the state gives numbers, and then we have to either meet those numbers or show progress towards those numbers in a meaningful way, in order to stay on the good list, stay off the naughty list. So, but I think if you look at the 25-26 numbers, what stands out to me are the amount of green arrows up. And to me, it's a testament to our purposeful focus on using data to inform a little bit more of our stuff, certainly led by Mrs. DeVinny, and our lead teachers, our administrators have gotten behind a lot of our data protocols. We're looking at data more closely. We're using data to make decisions around our curriculum and in our instruction. And over the last 2 to 3 years, you're starting to see the improvement shifts with those. Is it perfect? Of course not. Are we always striving to do better? Yes. And you'll see in the far right column, we're now diving to the point of we're looking at how many points to get to the next level, right? So, and then that sometimes means we're drilling down so far into, geez, how many students on extended response questions on a state assessment are getting 1 point instead of 2 points? And what can we do as teachers and administrators to practice those skills or reinforce those things to allow students to get 2 points on a rubric like that, right? Like those kind of fine-tuned, these things, when you drill all the way down, that's the kind of thing that we might be looking at. When we look at graduation rate, we're looking at things like Mr. Gaffney's academic recovery program. We're diving into, geez, 1 kid equals 2 percentage points on our graduation rate. So let's go back in our cohorts and find out kids that we might have missed. How can we remediate that and catch them up? That's a culture of data review. Those are steps in the right direction to increasing rigor and accountability for students, resetting those expectations around it's okay to be a good learner, it's okay to want to achieve, and giving tools to our teachers to move them from level A to level B. Any questions that you might had on this? I know there's a lot of things on here.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you. All right, I think we're on a set here, so I will take.
Can I ask a question first about the board president section?
Oh.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so
I thought you were gonna say the accountability data. and
No,
I was gonna
no,
go,
I don't. No. I know that I've seen Amanda doing kind of some digging and getting information on questions that were asked with this. At some point, when Amanda's done doing all of her digging for information, do we want to set like a date that as a board we sit down to like wrap this up and put a bow on it and be done with it?
So we're talking about the onboarding and the Board of Education handbook.
Just so that we can like check the boxes that we got them neatly done before the year's over.
Yeah, so, Ms. Osborne actually doesn't have like a date, she just randomly comes up with cool stuff and sends it off, so it's tough to kind of hold her. She's not set to, provide anything, she just kind of keeps coming up with stuff, which is great. I think we've kind of bounced this around a lot, and it was, from what I remember, this was set to when you get a chance, get in there, take a look at it, review it, put your notes in. nobody's been in there since we had that conversation, so if we wanted to set a date to it, but we would need to set a date and say that that was gonna be the end all.
So I know, just reading, it kind of reminded me when Amanda was
Mhm.
working on it today, like there were some thoughts or comments that I had that really would probably have to be like board decisions, or I don't know if we wanna do like an ad hoc committee to make the decisions, but, I know I had put all of my comments in back when we had originally given that deadline, so I don't know what needs to happen, but I would love to like have this wrapped up and.
Yeah, I don't think everyone had an opportunity, or a chance to do it, which was part of the reason we weren't able to, I guess, mesh all of that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Folds. So we can do that, I mean, we can set a date right now to go in there and then basically work off of what we have, if that, works. There's gonna be, the comments that are in there now would probably have to be a majority,
Right.
in order to make those changes, so I was kinda hoping, I think for Mrs. Folds and I speaking, that, people would at least be like, okay, check mark, I'm alright with that, or no, that's a change that doesn't need to happen, cause that would at least give us a little bit of a better feel
Yeah.
if there wasn't at least a majority on there at this point. Why don't we make a point to, the next meeting's the 25th of next month too, right?
No, the 18th.
Oh, yeah, that. Alright, well, at least somebody's paying attention, not me. Alright, so why don't we say, if we could do it by the 14th, that's a Saturday, so it even gives you a weekend day. And then, Mrs. Folds and I can kinda put this stuff together, maybe pull out, what, I don't wanna say controversial, but that required maybe more information other than just this is one person's opinion. We can put it together and we'll just say after March 14th, if you haven't made comments or you haven't had a chance to get in there, we'll just assume that you're okay with what's already in there. Does that sound alright? We'll bring it back on the 18th for a final approval. And then obviously discussion if necessary.
So are you looking for people to go in, like am I tasked with going in and saying, I agree with this person's comment, I think we should make this change, or what
So,
are you
I
looking
think
for
maybe
from
it
us?
would make more sense if you went in and you said if you disagreed, rather than.
I would agree.
Okay, so,
I would agree with the
Can you
disagreement.
choose another word, please?
Right, I would, rapido.
okay, so if I
I'm gonna be
read
using
Stephanie
that all day.
Kaiser comment and I'm like, oh,
That and-
I agree with that, I just
There's
move
no
on,
Stephanie
and you're good.
Kaiser comment in there.
Okay. If you
Whatever
did
else
put
you
a
used
comment in,
earlier, I'm gonna
yourself
put
in.
those two
I
together.
don't even know how to get it.
Stephanie.
I actually probably need Eric to turn the computer on and get me logged in.
Eric, don't retire, ever. At least until Mrs. Kaiser isn't on the board anymore. No, I would say if you have a new comment to add.
Okay.
So let's plan on that. That'll give us a few days to put that together. Any major things, shoot me a text or something and we'll take a look at it. But we'll use that date and then hopefully with no other crazy discussion, we can have it adopted at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right? We'll put that together for any future board members, for the following years. Thank you for the question. Anything else? All right. What is that keeps happening?
It's the door.
It's the doorstep.
The illegal doorstop. I know. I think doorstops are great, so. All right, I'll take a motion to move into executive for a particular personnel matter, please. Mrs. Folds, in a second. Mrs. Decker, thanks for coming. If you need to graduate, you need to see somebody that works here.
I didn't wanna ask.